Inspector Waziri is summoned by the district officer. He is tasked to investigate 2 murders in a remote village. He is told to complete the investigation before Independence Day, which is just 2 weeks away. When he gets to the village, Sergeant Sunday receives him at the park. Then at the station, he is introduced to the officers. That same day, they witness the return of the prince. He just finished university. He is the first graduate in the village. Later, they inspect the bodies. Inspector Waziri notices that they're similar. They were both strangled and violated. Sergeant Sunday says they were both virgins, and he has known them since they were children. Then they investigate the crime scene. It was the farmer, the owner of the land, that found the body, so they go to question him. He is a bit hostile to them and said he doesn't know anything and he didn't see anything, and asked them to leave. He has work to do. Next, they head to the palace. They meet the prince on the way there. The sergeant introduces the inspector to the prince. The prince condemns the killing and wishes him luck in the investigation. Inside, the inspector is introduced to the king. The king welcomes him and tells him to make sure he captures the killer. If not, there won't be peace in the village. Then outside, they find the high priest. He tells them that the killer is troubled and would kill again. The inspector asks him who the killer is, but he says nothing. The prince enters a bar to meet some old friends. In the background, we see a man is not too happy to see him. He is especially pained when he kisses the hand of the beautiful Tawa. Turns out he is the headmaster of the school where she teaches, and he has had feelings for her. As they catch up, the desperate headmaster couldn't help but walk towards them. They allow him to join them. Later, the beautiful Tawa asks to leave. The headmaster offers to walk her home. Because the village is not safe, she accepts and then turns to the prince, and she says she hopes to see him again. So that's when Sumonu, the prince's guard, sneaks out to go see his girlfriend in the bush. They talk about his job and their hopes of getting married soon. After a while, he tells her to head home because it's getting late. He offers to walk her home, but she refuses because her house is close by. So Sumonu heads back to the bar. The next day, the villagers find a body in the bush. It's Sumonu's girlfriend. Inspector Waziri notices that her death follows the same pattern as the others: strangulation and violation. He declares that they have a serial killer on their hands. Then he orders a curfew in the village and a checkpoint at the entrance of the village. At the station, the inspector suspects that these killings may be part of a ritual, a sacrifice, because the girls were all virgins. But Sergeant Sunday disagrees. He says there has never been a human sacrifice in the village. The inspector insists it must mean something and asks the sergeant to arrest the high priest for questioning because he predicted that the killer would kill again. He must know something about the killer. The sergeant refuses and says it's a taboo, an abomination to arrest the high priest. No policeman in the village can do that. But the inspector is not having it. He says it's an order, but the sergeant says he cannot obey such order. He says it's better to be suspended than to commit a taboo. Then the inspector suspends him for insubordination, refusal to obey an order. He then makes Corporal Ladun the acting sergeant. Together they head to the palace. Meanwhile, the prince visits the beautiful Tawa at the school. They talk about the soon-to-be independent Nigeria and the time they spent together as classmates in the same school. The beautiful Tawa wants to introduce him to her class because he is the first person from the school to go to King's College in Lagos and also finish university. She says it will encourage the students, but the prince is not too keen on that. Besides, it's almost break time. They notice the headmaster staring from afar. You can tell he is clearly in agony as he watches. Then, the prince asks her out for lunch, since it's break time. The beautiful Tawa accepts, and they head out. The headmaster is completely crushed. Meanwhile, at the palace, Inspector Waziri questions the high priest. The priest tells him that there's no human sacrifice in the village, and that the killer is a troubled soul who actually wants to be caught. He says he doesn't know who the killer is, but he'll kill again. On their way back, they find the prince's guard, Sumonu. He runs away immediately he sees them. The acting sergeant chases after him. The sergeant had applied for the Nigerian military admission and just got his letter of admission. He finally catches him. They question him at the station. He says he didn't kill her. He loved her and could never have hurt her. He had left her alive and well before going back to the prince at the bar. In the evening, the inspector visits Sergeant Sunday. He declares that his suspension period is now over. As they eat, Corporal Loden enters and tells them a girl called Chidima is missing. She is the only daughter of the local hunter Okafor. They all went out to search the forest. During the search, Corporal Lodun notices something inside the bush. He decides to check it out, separating from the group. Eventually, they find Chidima's body, but it's already too late. Corporal Lodun continues inside the forest and finds a man in the distance. He runs immediately. He sees Corporal Lodun. There's a long chase in the forest. Finally, he catches up to him. Turns out it's the prince after all. He is covered in blood. Corporal Lodun immediately recognizes him, so he lets his guard down. The prince takes advantage of this and slits his throat. By the time they find, he's already too late. The search party find a Hausa man called Usman in the forest. They accuse him of being the killer. He said he was only traveling through the forest and doesn't know anything about the killing. The police arrest him. At the station, he swears he didn't kill Chidima and that he is just a traveler. The inspector doesn't believe him, although he actually found a man in the forest but can't describe him because it was dark. After a lot of questioning, the man begins to hum a certain song. The inspector asks him what it was. He said the man he found in the forest whistled the song. The inspector recognizes the song, God Save the Queen, the British anthem. Just then, the villagers gather in front of the police station. They want Usman to be released to them so they can finish him off, deliver justice. The inspector refuses, so they want to break in by force, but the inspector threatens to shoot them if they try. The next day, the district officer arrives at the station. He orders the inspector to transfer Usman to Ibadan prison, but the inspector is not sure he is the killer. He requests for more time to solve the crime, but the district officer says no, the transfer must be done tomorrow. Meanwhile, the prince is on a date with the beautiful Tawa. He says he wants her to join him when he is in London. He hints at proposing to her soon. The next day, the police arrange to transfer Usman, but Okafor the hunter is hiding in the bushes, driven by pure vengeance. As they are about to take him into the car, he throws a machete at him, striking him down instantly. With his dying breath, he swears he didn't kill her. The police move in and arrest Okafor. He doesn't resist. His mission is complete. He is ready to face whatever comes next, even if it means death. That evening, Sergeant Sunday invites the inspector for a farewell celebration. The inspector, somewhat uninterested, says he has a light head for alcohol, but the sergeant insists. At the bar, they drink and talk about the difficulty of police work. Later, the inspector asks to leave. Drunk to stupor, he heads home. On his way, he hears the whistling of that unique song, God Save the Queen, the British anthem, but he's too drunk to see who it was. He tries to call the man to stop, but he is too weak to talk, walk, or even stand. Turns out it's the prince. As the inspector stumbles toward him, trying to see who it is, his legs suddenly give out beneath him. He crashes to the ground. The prince gets to him, towering over him. He doesn't speak, he just stares, like he's looking at something less than human, like an insect beneath his feet, then strikes him unconscious with a stick. He wakes up at the sergeant's house. He had found him in the street, unconscious, exposed to the weather. He caught a cold. The sergeant's wife prepares herbal treatment for him. Under the cloth, he thinks about the case, the suspects, the victims, and that annoying British anthem. Then it hit him.
I think I know the killer.
The sergeant can't believe what he's hearing. There's no way the prince could have done such a thing. He is a graduate, and all the girls in the village would fight to be with him. Why would he force himself on them? The sergeant says Usman is the killer and that the inspector is blinded because he was from his tribe. He says the case is closed and it's time for the inspector to leave the village. It's a day to independence. The inspector visits the beautiful Tawa at her school. They talk about the future of Nigeria. They also talk about the prince. She tells him that the prince will be leaving to London to further his studies, and she could have had the same opportunity. But the Reverend Roland chose the two brightest students for scholarship in Lagos. She could have been one of the two, but Reverend Roland did not choose her because she was a girl, and that made her angry for a long time, but she has come to terms with it. The inspector asks who the other student taken on scholarship was. She says it's the farmer, but he had come back to the village after 5 months in Lagos. To her, it's so strange because he doesn't even let his son go to school. The inspector goes to the farm. There he asks the farmer why he and the prince were taken to Lagos to study. The prince is now a graduate, set to travel to London for further education. But he came back to the village only to be a farmer, a total failure. He says if he continues to deny his son education, his son will turn out to be a failure just like him. The farmer lunges at him. Before the inspector can pull out his gun, he's slammed hard to the ground. The impact knocks the wind off of his lungs. The machete slams into the earth, missing his face by inches. The farmer suddenly lets go and breaks down in tears. The inspector is confused, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then the farmer tells him the awful story. When they were taken to Lagos, it was a nightmare. Every Thursday night, Reverend Roland would call them in, one after the other, and abuse them. He couldn't take it anymore, so one day he stole some money and came back to the village. He had begged the prince to come with him, but the prince refused, because the king and the entire village depended on him to succeed. He said after he came back to the village, he was angry at everyone, the villagers, his teachers, and his father for handing him over to the Reverend Roland. He had 5 months of abuse. The prince had 6 years. The men now understand it was the prince, and they understand why. At the Independence Day celebration, the prince asks the beautiful tower to go to their secret spot and wait for him there. He plans to propose. The sergeant Sunday wants to arrest him immediately, but the inspector wants concrete evidence to arrest him. Then the prince goes to the headmaster and tells him that the beautiful tower actually loves him. She had told him herself, the man's joy is boundless. The prince says the beautiful tower invites him out and wants to see him. He could take him there. With joy, the man accepts, and they sneak out of the celebration. The prince is actually scheduled to leave for London in the morning, so the inspector is desperate to catch him. Meanwhile, the beautiful tower waits for the prince. At the celebration ground, the inspector notices that the prince and the beautiful tower are missing. Desperate, he rushes, looking for them. Then the farmer steps forward and tells him he might know where they are. So the prince and the headmaster walk through the forest. The prince suddenly takes out a spiked handkerchief and attacks the man, holding the handkerchief against his nose to knock him out. The farmer takes them towards the spot. Turns out it was their old study spot when they were kids. Then the prince enters the spot and locks the door. They drink and talk about life after independence. The prince mentions he got the wine from Lagos. The beautiful tower says he must miss Lagos, and the Reverend Roland, the prince hiding his venomous intent, asked why. The Reverend Roland didn't pick her. After all, she was one of the best students. She said it's because she was a girl. The irreverent preferred boys. Unlucky for her, but lucky for him. That's when he snapped. Lucky for me. The man abused me. Now the entire village must feel my pain. Then he lunges at her. The police find the headmaster. He is still alive but unconscious. Looks like the prince planned to frame him for her death. As he tries to force himself on the beautiful tower, the inspector arrives just in time. The prince immediately jumps out the window and flees. The farmer and the inspector chase after him. In the dark, they tell him they understand what he went through and can help him, but he suddenly jumps out of hiding and takes the farmer at knife point. The inspector tells him to give up, but there's no way he's going quietly. I mean, after the amount of people he's flatlined, he knows he's getting the death penalty if he gets slapped in cuffs. Desperate, he tells the inspector to drop the gun or things are gonna get ugly, but the inspector flat out refuses to back down. Just before the blade can cut, the inspector fires. For a brief moment, he just stands there, like he can't believe it. Then slowly, almost gracefully, he collapses to the ground. In the end, the district officer quietly congratulates the inspector on solving the case, bringing a long-awaited end to the terror that gripped the village.